Welcome to Run As You Are Part 2 with Faith Winter, Colorado State Representative, my friend, and National Training Director for Vote Run Lead. My name is Erin Belardi. I'm the founder of Vote Run Lead. If you've joined us before, I'm a familiar face, rocking a ponytail this Saturday afternoon. I hope you all are in comfy clothes. I hope you've got your pen and paper out because this is a very tactical 30 steps. It's a 90-day challenge, 30 things that you can do right now. And as many of you know, that Run As You Are is a three-part series. Part 1 was a week ago Wednesday, and it's why you are the perfect candidate and the skills that you have. Talks a lot about the historical skills that you have into the political process, and actually those skills are exactly what we need right now. So if you didn't see that, it's up on our website. I'll be in the chat as I close out after I introduce Faith. And welcome. We're already using the chat. I love it. So we read the evaluations last time about the chat. Some of you love the chat. Some of you hate the chat. So I wanted to provide an option for those of you who are not that into the chat. If you scroll your mouse over the right-hand corner of the deck, so you should see something that pops up that looks like a square with 4 outward arrows. Those, if you click on that, you will move out of this screen and into another one that only shows you the deck. No chat, no face, anything. So you just get to see the PowerPoint. So that might be easier for some of you who are not that into the chat. For those of you that are, I'm looking forward to getting in there with you this week and answering some of your more tailored questions for your unique experiences. All right. So move it right along. Oh, the numbers are still climbing, so I'll do a little introduction, but great. We're already using the chat. You are now part of the VRL Nation. You're part of the VRL family. I want to push everyone, especially after this web class, to join the Facebook alumni group. It's Vote Run Lead Alums. Vote Run Lead Alums. The private Facebook group. Ask to join, and we'll probably name the list of folks who we have on the web classes. That's where we're going to continue to challenge you to take these steps over the next 90 days. Send a friendly reminders. You can report back to others what you've been doing, how your meetings have been going, how your coffees have been going. And so we look forward to getting more conversation on the Facebook group. So introduce yourself. We've got Austin in the house. We've got Arkansas. We've got Des Moines, Iowa, Illinois, Bronx in the house. I love that. And know your names and new ones. And okay. Not a feedback on the audio. I'm just going to hold this to my face. Is that easier? It's not as chic, but it's better. Great. Better? Okay. Okay. And is your computer muted? I can hear myself too. Sorry. Yep. Faith, would you also try muting just to see? Okay, how about now, folks? Yep, I think we all weren't muted on our various devices. There it is. Okay, awesome. Thanks. So here we are. We're in the chat box. A perfect example of the chat box, using it to tell the presenter that you can't hear very well. So that's fantastic. There's also a number in your any meeting email that if you are dialing in, that's sometimes easier. For example, if your connection gets a little bit weak, you might also want to dial in on the phone. All right. Great. Okay, so we're already using the chat. I really love that. So as many of you know, Vote Run Lead is a training powerhouse. I think you've just seen our website go through a bit of a shift, a bit of a brand shift to really focus on women who are running right now, women who are running in the next 2 election cycles. So if you're interested in running between now and 2020, this series is for you. It's practical steps that you can take, whether you're running in 6 weeks, 6 months, or in 3 years. And we're excited to roll out the Run As You Are series. We've also, with the website, reorganized some of our resources so they're a bit easier to search by topic. All of these classes, including this one, will go up. It takes us about 24 hours to put it on the web. We're also going to whip up a quick blog post with all 30 of these actions and the corresponding links, so we will get that to you as well. And by the end of this session, we're going to have a survey for you to fill out. The survey will have a mix of questions on both this content, but also on sort of what do you want to see moving forward. we are interested in putting possibly like a 6-week program together, a 10-week program, something with a real sort of entry and exit for all of you. So we want your feedback on some of that delivery too. All right, awesome. So as you know, it'll be recorded. It'll go on our site. It's a part of this 3-part series. If you didn't take it last time, you can go and watch it. If you're not available, can't stay for the whole thing, that's okay too. I have a feeling this is going to be one of those classes you're going to have to watch again because it is fully packed with the 30 things that you can do in 90 days. So welcome to the 90-Day Challenge. Many of you might know Faith Winter. She's a Colorado State Representative. She was the Executive Director of Emerge Colorado. She's a consultant for Vote Run Lead as our National Training Director. And Faith is doing it. She is living the political life. She's talking the talk and walking the walk. She is recognized not only in Colorado but nationally as one of the sort of young politicians to watch. She's a mom of 2. She gives plenty of time to women not only in Colorado but through coaching sessions that are available to you all following this workshop. And is just an expert. She's sort of the secret weapon of the women in politics community in America. And so I'm excited to have her kick us off. But I am going to just do the first one of the 30 so that she doesn't have to do all 30 in a row. And also because it really ties back with some of our previous workshops. So here we are. We're going to get started with number 1, the 90-Day Challenge, what you can do right now. And the first thing you can do right now is know why. Know why you are the best person to run as you are. And this is an exercise that we roll out in a workshop called Level Up Your Leadership. And we're going to share that link as well. But really, all of this must be rooted in knowing that you are the right person from the job, that you are qualified to lead both from the heady stuff and your experiences, but also that hard stuff and the passion that you bring to the job. And at that frame of mind, you just got to keep telling yourself that you are ready to run as you are, and all of the other stuff will sort of fall into place. So it's that combination of fact and feeling. It's how you do business and the way you actually conduct yourself. It's the head and heart stuff, and that's going to be the foundation for your success. And Faith Winter is a living, breathing version of that, and she's a constant reminder to run as you are. She has brought her authentic self to this space, to her city council run and win, and to the state legislature. And so I'll turn it over to you, Faith. And thank you so much for joining us this Saturday afternoon.
Unmuted. Great. Thank you, Erin. And hello, everyone. I'm so excited to spend about the next hour with you. And my goal with this webinar was oftentimes we have a lot of women that say, I want to run. I'm in. I've made the decision. But what do I run for? Where do I run? What level do I run for? What are my first steps? And I don't live in your community, so I can't tell you that. But what I can do is give you very, very tangible things. And we think a 90-day challenge is a perfect way to do this. It's 30 things, right? And so about 10 a month, about 3 a week. Some take 2 minutes. Some will be longer and more involved. But everything's going to be super concrete. And feel free to ask questions in the chat box. And we'll leave some time for questions at the end as well. So as Erin said, first write your mission statement, right? Why are you the best person to run? And it doesn't have to be long or drawn out. Literally just write the sentence, I'm qualified to lead because I am. So for me, when I thought about running, I thought I'm qualified to lead because I am hardworking. I have always wanted the voters to know that no matter who else is in the race, no one's going to outwork me. And because I care for my community in really deep ways. I decided to run for office when I was working at a homeless shelter. And so that would have been my mission statement. Your mission statement will be different. Maybe you say you're a good listener. Maybe you say that you're really analytical. One of my colleagues I work with, we call him Wikipedia because he is so detail oriented. So what do you bring to the table? So the first is just write your mission statement. The second is inventorying your base. And so actually write it down and answer these questions. So we all come with folks that like us already, that are already going to be supportive from day one. So for example, when I ran, I had worked for women's organizations and the environmental community. And so I knew that environmentalists were behind me and part of my crew, and women that were involved in women's organizations like Vote Run Lead and like Emerge They'd volunteer for me. They would speak up for me. They'd validate me. They'd donate for me, right? And so this is who you already have. And this is an important piece. Who's your base? And so I like to think of it, right? Who's your posse? When you show up to the fight, like these superheroes are, who comes with you already today before you start networking and building more people? So make a list of who your posse is, who's going to show up that you already have. So that's the second thing you can do. Number 3. All right. So sometimes this might seem like the most daunting, but I think it's the most fun because this is where we're actually going to start meeting new people and get the lay of the land, right? So every time, a lot of times I'm doing one-on-one coaching sessions with women running for office, and they say, I don't know what to run for. I don't know what seats are open. And it's not as simple as a Google search because maybe a seat's opening up, but someone's been preparing to run for it for 3 years. Doesn't mean you can't, but it's probably important information you should know. And so we want you to start in 90 days. So between now and July 15th, right? 4th of July, that seems like plenty of time. Easter is the 4th of July. We want you to have 15 coffees in your community. And you just need to start with one person and then ask them to recommend 2 more people and repeat. And I guarantee you'll get to 15 coffees. Now, some of you are probably sitting at home and going, I don't even know who that first person is. Help me figure out who that first person is. And so I wanted to give you an example. I live in Westminster. If I was new to Westminster and thinking about running for office, I could Google my city councilors. So I Googled Westminster City Council, and this is the bio of Shannon Bird. She's on Westminster City Council. And if you read her bio down here, it says that she volunteered with Great Education Colorado. Well, I'm on Great Education Colorado's email list, and I've done a few actions with them. And so I would call her up, not know her, and say, hi, Shannon, I'm one of your constituents. I noticed that you used to volunteer with Great Education Colorado. I have too. I would love to meet with you and find out more about Westminster. And just start there. I guarantee if you Google your city councilors or your school board members or your state reps, there is going to be something in someone's bio that you can connect to as a hook to get your first coffee. All right. Another thing you can do, and spread this out. So Erin talked about how we have so many online resources. We, in fact, have over 80 web clinics online. Now, I don't want you to watch all 80. That's a little bit overwhelming, and you're not going to take in all the content. But what I do want you to do is scroll through those 80 and pick the 3 that you think would be most useful for you. They're about an hour to an hour and a half. And so scroll through all of those. They just put the link in the chat. It's super easy to find. And so do 3. Do 1 a month. 1 hour a month, getting new training from votelearnlead.org. The other thing is become an expert on an issue. And so this is the issue that you might want to make the most impact on, the issue that puts the fire in your belly, the issue that brought you to this web clinic today. In fact, I'd love to in the chat box if you shared some of those issues that are really motivating you to run for office and be involved right now. So choose 1 or 2 issues and read 1 article a day. And I guarantee you, and take out weekends, right, on a busy day. So really, if you're reading 4 articles a week on an issue, you're going to be an expert. And I want to give you an example of how easy this is. So one of the reasons I decided to run was because of affordable housing. I really saw the need for affordable housing. So getting ready for this webinar, I Googled affordable housing. And here are 4 articles. Some took 5 minutes to read, some took about 10. Or an editorial, and you can start reading an article 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And if you do this for a month, you are going to know more about affordable housing than 99% of America, more than 99% of your community. And this gives you the ability to really own an issue, right? Own it, run on it, carry it, and become an expert. 6, Learn the political landscape. So get to know your political environment, including who the players are and what they're currently working on. And the way you do this is through those 15 coffees. And so when you're having those 15 coffees, one, you're asking them for 2 other suggestions of people you should meet with. But you should also spend most of the time asking them questions. So what was it like to run for office? Who helped you? Who didn't help you? Who was against you? Right? And then you'll start to realize who's in your community. So for example, there's a couple people in my community that expect you to call them up and say, I'm thinking about running for office, and have a coffee with them first before you do. And if you don't, they tend to be really cranky. Well, you would figure out who those people are based on your coffees. Or there's a couple people in my neighborhood, or my community, there's this one woman that walks for every candidate on the Democratic side. She walks every day of the week. She switches between candidates. And by talking to folks and having these coffees, you're going to find out who that rock star volunteer is. And so this is more the people that don't have titles, right? Obviously, you have your mayor that you have, or the editor of your paper, or the head of the PTA. But oftentimes, these influencers are folks that don't have an official title, but through your coffees, you'll be able to figure out who these influencers are and get them on your side before you even run. So that's 6. All right. And then this is the important one. Go to a city council meeting, go to a school board meeting, or go to a legislative hearing based on what you want to run. You should definitely see what these look like before you jump in. And bonus points if you get to shadow an elected official for a day. So I added this image in to make a point. So even though this is about lobbyists, oftentimes, right, when I'm on an airplane and people, you sit down and they say, what do you do? And I say, I'm a politician, right? And there are clearly images that come up with that. And I'd say they're probably the same images that come up with a lobbyist, right? What my friends think I do, that I schmooze and drink wine and have a good time. What my parents think I do is, I'm in very important offices having important conversations. What the other side says I do is destroy everything. Society thinks I'm in it all for the money. I think I'm very important walking into beautiful buildings up steps. But what we actually do is sit in committee rooms for hours and hours and hours, listening to the public, having debate, having discussions. And that's why it's really important to go to a city council meeting, go to a school board meeting, go to a legislative hearing, or shadow an elected official for a day to see what it's really like, to see if once you are elected, you're going to actually like the day-to-day process of this. So, and just to show you that this really happens, this is one of my constituents. So this is a screenshot from my actual email inbox that I showed you. So I had a constituent, I've never met her. She reached out and asked me to vote yes on the Birth Certificate Modernization Act. And I emailed back and said I voted for it. And then she emailed me back and said that she wanted to shadow me for a day. And I said, absolutely. And so I'd never met this person. She had asked me for a vote and then asked me to shadow. So this is normal and it happens all the time. And so don't be intimidated when you're reaching out to folks to do this. So she came and actually shadowed me all day on Thursday. And she said she was really glad she did. She said it was 100% different than what she thought it would be to come down to the Capitol all day. So go to these meetings, see what the job is actually like. All right, so there's going to be quite a few things throughout this that's about getting to know the media, because part of running for office is raising your profile, getting name recognition, and also being comfortable being public and on record about issues, because that's what taking a vote is. You are on record about an issue. So one of the ways to practice that skill, to get comfortable with that skill, is to write a letter to the editor. And you don't have to read this actual letter. I just picked one from the Denver Post that I was preparing that was in the Post that day. And it's a letter to the editor about how the United Airlines passenger and how he was treated and how we need to do something about this. So these are 100 to 150 words. You usually submit, so if you look below this man's name, it says submit a letter to the editor via this form and check out our guidelines. And so you just go online, see what the guidelines are, respond to an article you saw, and get used to the process of being on record and having an opinion. It shouldn't take you very long, 15, 20 minutes to write, a couple minutes to submit. And so like I said earlier, we are trying to give you 30 things in 90 days, right? Some things, doing the trainings, that's a 3-hour commitment. Doing this is probably about a 20-minute commitment. And so you want to spread that out so it's not day 90 and you're doing it all at once. All right, so parties. Email your local party and schedule a face-to-face meeting. So if you're a Republican, Google your county Republican Party. If you're a Democrat, Google your Democratic Party. Now, I guarantee we have some unaffiliateds on this webinar. And you're like, what do I do? So you absolutely can run as an unaffiliated person, but know that sometimes the resources usually aren't equitable when you're deciding to run as an unaffiliated versus not. But if you are affiliated, you have to get to know your local party. Now, some local parties, super sophisticated and very welcoming. Some local parties, not welcoming or not very sophisticated, but you still need to know who these folks are. So schedule a face-to-face meeting and say hi, whether it's the chair, the vice chair, the secretary. Some parties actually have an outreach director that it's their job to talk to new people.
Hey, Faith.
Yeah.
Some women have asked us, do I have to say that I'm running for office?
Absolutely not. And if you're not 100% certain, or if you don't trust that person, because part of this whole process is figuring out who you can trust or not, because it could be really damaging for the news to be public that you're running before you're ready to own that and before you're ready to jump in. And so, for example, that woman that shadowed me this week, she just said she wanted to know more about politics. So most cases, unless you are ready to be public or unless it's someone you really trust, I would just say that you want to know more about the community. You want to be more politically involved. And since the election, because so many people are getting more involved, it is a very normal conversation to have, and we're hearing it all the time. And so you don't have to say you're looking to run until you're ready and until you trust that person. That was a great question. So number 10, this is a 2-minute item, right? This is something you can do really quick. Email an elected official and ask them to vote yes or no on an issue and make your case. So this goes along with a letter to the editor, right? Getting to know the issues, getting to know what's happening, but also going on record. And it's also that you're an influencer now. You're getting involved. You are here on a beautiful Saturday and you're here doing this for an hour. You are an influencer. So use your vote to actually make a difference. And your voice, to actually make a difference on an issue you care about, because it really does matter. So email an elected official and ask them. And yes, Allie, writing testimony for a public hearing on a bill, that's like gold star standard. Not only are you contacting people to ask them for their vote, but you're attending a legislative hearing, which was earlier on. So you're doing 2 things at once, because you're testifying, you're attending, you're asking for a vote. So yes, Allie, that counts. That does 3 of the things on the list in one issue. And then write a letter to the editor when you go home that night. And then there's 4. And so this is just an example of how easy and short it can be to contact an elected official. So I have no idea who Patricia is. She's never contacted me before. And she just emailed me about a bill and why she thought it was important to her. It's 1 sentence long, right? She wrote one sentence. It's not a form letter, and said thank you. So it's super easy to do and doesn't have to take very long. All right. Now you might be saying, how do I know when to email or call about a bill? Well, there's an easy way to do this. And remember, you don't have to do this in the order we set them up in. You can do what you think's easiest first or what's hardest first, right? It's like when I was a kid, my sister ate her vegetables first to get them done, and I ate my vegetables last to hold them off and do what I liked first. And so I think it's deciding what you want to do, and you don't have to do this all in order. But if you were thinking during the last slide of how do I know when to email about an issue? So we want you to sign up for 5 email lists. So sign up for community-based organizations, your local homeless shelter, for example, or CASAs, court-appointed special assistants. They always have fundraisers and events going on to support them. Sign up for an elected officials email list, and then sign up for an issue or policy organization. And so if you said that you really cared about affordable housing, sign up for your local housing advocacy group. So in Colorado, it's Housing Colorado. And they send out action alerts that say, hey, this housing bill's up, call your elected officials today. And so if you were thinking about how do I know when to do this, I guarantee you by signing up for 5 email lists that you will know. And make sure that one is a different viewpoint than yours. So for example, I always think it's really good I'm on the Colorado Union of Taxpayers and Principle of Liberties list, because that gives me an insight into people that don't agree with me, but what they care about, what they're passionate about, and what messages they're using. All right, then you want to donate to a political cause. And remember those email lists, they'll be asking you for money too, and not just calling for votes. So it'll be asked for plenty of money if you sign up for 5 email lists, or you can find a different cause. And the reason we want to do this is because there is power in money. Now that doesn't mean you need to be rich. It does not mean you need to make a big donation. You can make a $10 donation, but it's another way to express your view. It's also a way to start seeing different organizations that once you do run will likely be sending you a questionnaire to see if they want to endorse you and give you the money. So donate to a political action cause and make your voice heard that way as well. It's important. And yes, making a monthly donation to the ACLU, yeah, you're donating every month to a political cause. And so that brings up another really important point is, and that was from the chat box. Sorry, for those of you that have closed out the chat box, someone said, does making a monthly donation to the ACLU count? And it does. And so some of these things you all might be doing already. So I'd imagine you're on a email list, you're already making these donations. Someone was already getting testimony ready, right? And so some of this you might already be doing, which then I say you're more qualified, more ready to run than you thought when you came to this webinar. So 13 is join a new organization. So if you're making a monthly donation to ACLU, you're already a member, but then join a new one that has a different point of view or a different issue that you are interested in. And remember earlier you inventory your base. So if you're making a monthly donation to ACLU, they're part of your base. But think about what other organizations and people you need in your base when you're expanding it. So for example, when I first ran, I joined my historical society because I thought that was a good area to expand my base that I didn't already have. And so use this one as a way to expand your base and grow that posse that's going to show up for you. So for example, this is just a screenshot from Conservation Colorado, and you could have done sign up for an email list with them, make a donation with them, call an elected official on one of their action alerts. And so a lot of these pieces and steps are intertwined to make it as easy as possible for you, but to set you up for success. All right. 14 is volunteer. Help out on a campaign or in an elected official's office. So a couple month ago, someone came to shadow me, and he had decided to run for office. And he was going to go home that day and file papers. And I asked him his experience, and I found out that he had never volunteered for a campaign. So he had never knocked a door. He had never made a donation. He had never stuffed an envelope or called a voter. And I think that's really important that you at least have an experience on a campaign or in an office before you run, just to see what it's like. And you might say, you know, that was a really great experience and I want to do the same thing in my campaign. Or maybe you show up and it's not a good experience, but now you know what not to do in your campaign. So it's important to go out and volunteer in an office or on a campaign. And this might be something you do towards the end of your 90 days, because maybe you go through your 15 coffees and the first 5 people you meet with gave you information, but you weren't inspired by, right? It was good and they gave you more numbers and they told you about the community. But then number 6 you meet with and you say, oh my God, this person's amazing. I'm clearly going to volunteer for them. But make sure that you make the time to volunteer on a campaign. All right, something else you need to do in your 90 days is talk to your family and friends about what this is going to look like and how it's going to impact them. So here's a picture of my 2 kids holding a yard sign. And so it's about talking to your kids, all your family and friends, and talking to them about how this will work and how this is going to change and what's acceptable. So for example, I am currently considering running for a higher office. I don't know if I am or not. But if I do, I know there's going to be a lot of mail against me, like 50, 60 pieces in an election cycle. That's different than what I've experienced before. So I had to talk to my husband and say, this is going to be hard, and it's going to be hard on our family, and here's how we're going to work it out. With my kids, is talking to them about being involved, and as they get older, their level of comfort. So right now, they love door knocking with me. They deliver yard signs with my dad. Tobin does the ask. My son does the ask at all my fundraisers. But as they get older, they might not want to do that. And so it's having a conversation with your family and friends about what family life looks like, about what campaign life looks like, and how they're going to overlap, because they are going to overlap. So there's spouses that are super into this and they're upfront with you at every event and they're door knocking. Or there's my incredibly supportive husband who has supported me every step of the way, who does my website and supports me and helps design my mail and my donation envelopes, right? And so how does it affect your family, and how will your campaign life and family life interact, and what's appropriate? So that's important to talk to going into your campaign. So this is another picture of my daughter. She goes to a lot of political events with me. She actually has a book where every time she meets a woman politician, they sign it, and she's going to keep it through her life. And so this is just another example of you can't compartmentalize all this, but you have to decide what's appropriate. All right, so you also want to get political online. And this, again, goes back to that letter to the editor and asking an elected official to vote. It's about getting used to having a point of view and going on record with that point of view. So post a petition. Include about why you care. Why should someone sign this petition? Why should someone do that? You're already reading an article a day about that issue you really care about, so share that article. Call people to action. Help educate your network. So get political online. And then this is along the same lines. And so, right, this is another 2-minute one versus a 10-minute one. Follow 10 reporters online, because that's really where reporters are these days. It's also how you're going to get their attention once you're in. And then follow 10 political figures and see what they're doing, and just start following political Twitter. So here's an example. Erin posted this article, 10 fiercely political women you have to follow on Twitter right now. You're going to find so many ways to engage, to take action, to retweet, to share their information. And then on the left-hand side is a cut from my Twitter feed earlier this week, because now that I am in office, I use Twitter to help organize my base and get my base excited. And so we had a big week this week, and that was an example about getting political online. All right, so this is going to be one of the harder, longer pieces of the challenge that you have to do in 90 days. And I want you to take the time and put the effort into it, and you probably won't get it done in one day, but you have to put together your contact list and use whatever list tool you think is easy for you. If you're a Google Docs person, use Google Docs. If you're an Excel person, use Excel. But you want to put together your contact list, because when you run, your list is gold, both literally and figuratively. This is where you're going to fundraise from. It's where you're going to get your volunteers from. And so you want to think about this as your holiday list on steroids. So everyone you have worked with, people you intern for, and interns that have interned for you, boards you've been on, and everyone else that's been on that board, your hairdresser, your dog groomer, your sorority sisters, your clubs in college, if you were in clubs, who was in your club with you, your college professors, your high school teachers, your mom's friends that you grew up with, or your dad's friends. And so think about this not as just someone that would appreciate a card from you, but you'll be using this list, and this takes time, right? You can download all your Facebook contacts. You can get all your contacts from your email, all the contacts from your cell phone, old lists, other lists that you used to have, and take the time to do this in a right way, because you don't want to be wasting time doing this once you file for office. Because as you'll learn in other trainings, because you're watching the Vote Run Lead trainings, is a good campaign is all about managing time, money, and resources. And if you're spending campaign time getting your contact list together, that's not super valuable. So take the time, put the effort into this, and get as good and clean of a contact list as you can. This is probably the biggest lift, along with the 15 coffees, out of this list. All right, so you need to know what your district looks like. And this I put towards the end, because maybe you've done your 15 coffees, you've gone to the state legislature, you've gone to a school board meeting, you've met a bunch of people. You might be getting to the point where you're kind of deciding what level of office and what district you want to run for. And you've done that through all this work you've done. And so you need to know what the actual registration breakdown is for your community or the district that you think you're running for. And so the big tip here is, remember that party official you met with in step number 9, they can help you get access to this data. And so what I did is actually do a screenshot of this data that your party official can help you get. So this is my district in Colorado. There's 42,400 voters in my district. I represent 77,000 people. There's this many voters, and it breaks it down. So as you see, there's some more Dems than Republicans, but there's more unaffiliated than anyone else. And so your party can help get this information, but this is going to inform you on the type of campaign. And so if your district is really heavily Democratic or really heavily Republican, that means you're more likely probably facing a primary. Or if it's heavily registered into what you're not, walking into a race where you know the challenges that you're going to have or how competitive the district is. So get your numbers. It's important to inform you when you're going in and looking at your run. And then ask a friend to make a donation to a candidate or charity you like. So this is to start flexing our muscles on being ready to ask people for money. And oftentimes, women are much more comfortable asking for someone else or asking for a cause they believe in. And so this is just to get the taste out of your mouth the first time to say, will you make a donation? Will you do this? And so ask a friend. You've now joined all those email lists. You've made a donation yourself to someone. You're volunteering in a campaign maybe. So ask a friend to make a donation and just start getting used to the fact that in life, you will be asking people for money. And then read your local paper every day. Get to know your community. Check it out. This is just a screenshot that I thought was funny from the Denver Post because it's about a new cannabis church. And if you live in Colorado, you are probably reading about pot every single day if you're reading the local paper. But read your local paper every day to stay current and see what's going on. And also remember you wrote that letter to the editor. Well, checking out the letter to the editor will show you where your community is and what your community is thinking, which is important for anyone thinking about running for office. And as you're reading it, email a reporter and thank them for a good article. Thank them for a good coverage, because usually reporters only get main emails and you want to start building a positive relationship with them because the media can in fact be your friend. So as you're reading your newspaper every day, when there's a really fair and balanced or in-depth or impressive coverage that you like, go ahead and email the reporter. All right, so 23, this one's it's not a 2-minute activity. It's something I want you to start thinking of now, and you won't have perfected by the end of 90 days. I haven't perfected it by any means, but it starts to be cognizant of your language. Women oftentimes say just and sorry and like. I do, and it is really hard for me to stop. But I thought this was very appropriate. Stop saying I'm just. You are not just anything. You are a world changer. And don't forget that. And so own your power, right? Own your opinions. A lot of things that we've talked about, from the letter to the editor to being political on social media and talking to elected officials, is to start to own your opinion and your ideas and your place in the world. And so use the language to match that, because you are all powerful. And then 24 is we have a worksheet online. Why are you running? So why are you running for office? And this starts to go through your values. And most importantly, think about your story. And so it is incredibly important, and we have trainings on this, and you will see every training I've probably done for Vote Run Lead. At some point, I will talk about the importance of your story, because voters are going to vote for people they like and trust. And the way you develop that relationship is through storytelling. And so this is to know your story. Why are you running? Who put that fire in your belly? Because every elected official can stand up and say, I'm running to make a difference because I care about education, the environment, and the economy, right? Well, that doesn't matter if you're young, old, if you're from the Bronx, or you're from Illinois, or you're a Democrat or Republican. It's not memorable, and anyone could say that. What makes you sticky, what makes you memorable, what builds that trust with voters is your story. And this worksheet will start to help you tell your story. And then we all need to be inspired at some point, right? So I saw in the chat when there was a picture of Senator Gillibrand, a lot of people were saying, she's my senator, and other people are like, we love Senator Gillibrand. She's one of my political heroes. And so I follow her. I follow what bills she's running. I follow her on Twitter. I read what she writes in the papers. So make a list of your political heroes, both male and female, current and former. So John Lewis is incredible. And when I was 22, I read his book, something about running in the wind or going in the wind, but it was about his time as an organizer. And I was a 22-year-old organizer. And that inspires me to this day. So make a list of your political heroes and be inspired by them, because it's important to be inspired through this process. All right. So you got to do something that's not political. We're asking you to step up and do a lot of work for 90 days and be really political. but really balance is important, right? Erin mentioned that I had 2 kids and I'm walking the walk. And so you have to do something that makes you happy. And in fact, a lot of times I tell women when you're thinking about running for office, they ask about balance and I say, make a list of things you're willing to give up and a list of things you're not. And so before I ran for office, I saw a lot more movies in the theater. We would go to on opening weekend a lot. We'd go on a date and see a lot more movies. I don't do that anymore, and that was something I was willing to give up. Something I'm not willing to give up is camping and hiking. This is my sole recharging thing I do, is to go camping and hiking. And so this past campaign, I hit my door goals, and I would door knock twice on a Saturday and every night, but I kept Sundays to go hiking with my kids. So also keep that list of what you're not willing to give up to do this, and then schedule it and make sure you do it in this 90-day period, because balance is really important. Attend a demonstration or community meetup for something you're passionate about. And so, for example, today are all the tax marches, but I just be here with you, lovely ladies, but there's lots and lots of different activities going on right now. And so make sure you go there. One, I think it's important to be seen and to be in different places. But I also think it's really important to be connected with the community, right? And know what they're thinking, what they're saying. And by going to these places, you're going to see actual community and get to know them. So attend a demonstration or a community meetup. Go to a Chamber of Commerce event. So running, it's really important to know your business community. Who's the largest employer in your district? What are some of the small businesses? What challenges are the small businesses facing? So it's really important to go to a Chamber of Commerce event to start developing that network as well. And then find a buddy. All right, so Vote Run Lead has been inviting women to run for over a decade. And that is kind of where we started, was on this invitation. And myself, I never would have run if Joan Fitzgerald, who was the first woman president of the Colorado Senate, didn't come up to me one day and say, you need to run for office. And here I am. And so it is important that as you're building your networks, you're getting ready for your own run, that we lift as we rise. I think it's really important we do that. So go invite a friend to run for office. So this is my dear friend, Brittany Pedersen. We share offices, but when I was on city council, I ended up being her mentor for a training program in 2008, and I invited her to run for office. And now we're best friends, and she's running, and she's actually running for Congress right now. And so find a friend, invite them to run for office, because one, we need more women in office, but also she's my friend that on a tough day, I pick up the phone and she knows what it's like and she knows that it's there. And it's always nice having that friend. And finally, run as you are. You are ready. And so this was a lot. These are a lot of steps, but it's to help you figure out your community, where you should run, where the openings are. But no, it wasn't about your skills, right? Did you notice it's more about meeting people and making connections and practicing skills you already have? And that's because you are ready to run. You're ready to run by being here on a Sunday. Being here on a Saturday. So run as you are ready. And I hope that this 90-day challenge is helpful. You can watch this again. We're going to have a blog post go up with the 30 things so you can check them off. We want you all to go on to our Facebook alumni group and update us. Tell us the funny stories. I guarantee you, as you're having coffees with these 15 people, there's going to be a really funny story. Come on to Facebook and tell us that. There's going to be a really empowering story. Come tell us. There's going to be a frustrating story from a coffee that didn't go well. Tell us about where you're making your donation. Tell us about who you're asking your friends to donate to. So keep us updated. Erin and I and Liz, who's been in the chat, are on the Vote Run Lead Facebook page a lot. So leave us questions, leave us updates. We are here to help guide you through this 90-day process. It starts today. You have until July 15th. So think about that. That's a good chunk of time. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. I'm looking at the chat box. And I have one from Deborah. How do you raise money, and did you put your own money in? Thank you, Deborah. So we have probably 4, 5, 6 trainings at Vote Run Lead Online on fundraising specifically. So choose one of those as your 3 that you watch during this challenge. But the short answer is I've always donated to myself, but not, I didn't put in seed money. So I think one campaign I donated $200 to myself or $50. Really, that's why I said probably the most important thing you do is getting your list together. Because your first money is going to come from your friends, your family, your allies, your network, people you've served on boards with. And then once you show that, one, you're hardworking enough and courageous enough to raise money from your contacts, then some of the other political money starts coming in. But your first money, your seed money, really comes from your own contacts, which is why putting that list together in this 90-day challenge is so important. Yes, and Allie says, be careful about self-funding. Don't put yourself in financial risk. Absolutely. Don't fund more than you can afford. And it's really important that we don't just have wealthy people running. So self-funding is not a requirement to run for office. Absolutely not. What other questions do you have? Put some questions into the box. Let's see, we have, what's the difference between 2 and 18? Let me scroll back through and I will get you that answer. Put together your contact list. Oh, and 2 is building your base. 2 is a little bit broader, right? 2 is a little bit of mapping your background and your history. So number 2 is saying, I'm really good with the environmentalists. I'm really good with the women's groups. But I know in my community that the labor unions are really important. Or maybe you say, I'm really good with the Chamber of Commerce. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce, but there's an important Rotary Club that I'm not connected to. So I'm going to join that Rotary Club. And so mapping your base is a little bit about where do you already have support and kind of finding those gaps in your community. Whereas 18 is your actual list and saying, my sister and her cell phone and her email, and my sorority sister and my hairdresser, and what's the actual name, phone number, and email and address for everyone. So that's the difference. Yeah, so more about inventorying your base. So imagine you had your kickoff for city council tomorrow. Who would show up? That's your base. You all, I would imagine, have probably been asked to run for office from some people. Who's doing the asking and who do they represent? That's your base. If you have volunteered for other candidates or other events and causes, that's your base because you were there for them and they're going to be loyal to you. And so think about who would show up tomorrow without you doing any of this work, without you calling, without you pitching yourself, without you making the case. Who are the people that would just automatically show up? And that's kind of what you're establishing in number 2, because you want to make sure that you use that base really well. Okay, so we have a question from Kendra in the chat that says, how much do you think it takes to have a successful campaign? Is there a magic number that would make you comfortable to move forward? And so I'm assuming that, yes, she says she's talking about money. And that's actually something that maybe we should add a number 31. But once you start deciding what to run for, all fundraising information is public record. And so the cities keep the record of how much the last city council person raised. The Secretary of States or the election board keep records of state house races. So for example, a state House race in California is getting towards $1 million in some places. In Colorado, in some places, it's 45,000. And in Ohio, someplace, it might be 90,000. So there isn't one magic number. It depends on how many voters are in your district, how much you want to contact them, and what has traditionally been. So you would look up that public information for the race you're looking at and other similar races to get a ballpark number about how much you need to raise. So Sarah says, I'm a stay-at-home mom. My kids are 4 and 1.5, running for a position that will let me have a flexible or semi-predictable schedule is important to me. What advice do you have for someone in my situation with young children who does still need to be at home? I'm very inspired to participate in politics. So any schedule you can work out and decide to run. And so again, it's looking at how many doors you think you have to knock and how much money do you have to raise, and working backwards from that, and then setting a schedule. So for example, I ran my first re-election campaign and I kicked it off a month after I had my daughter. And so what I did was I would go door knocking 3 nights a week and for 2 hours on the weekend. But that wasn't as much as I'd done before, but I needed to be at home with my daughter. So I made up for it in fundraising more money so I could hire a paid canvas. So I think it's just putting your schedule into the campaign plan, deciding if that's enough time to hit your door number and your fundraising number. And if it's not, figuring out how you can adjust, whether it's more volunteers. So maybe you just think, okay, I'm door knocking a little less frequently, but if I get one more volunteer each shift, we'll get our numbers. So it's all about getting to the numbers at the end, protecting your schedule, making sure your campaign manager is on board with that schedule. But you absolutely can run and have a job. You can run and be a stay-at-home mom and need to be home during the day. There is a lot of flexibility in it. It's just making sure that you're sticking to a schedule and reaching your goals. So it says, another one from the chat, thanks for an uplifting webinar. It sounds so fun. However, sometimes it is more dicey, a lot of egos in politics, a lot of opposing forces. How do you deal with that? And it will get dicey, and there are egos, which is why it's really important to build your own army, right? And so I helped Brittany, she's helped me build your own army. I tell women you need resilient skin. I hate when people tell you need thick skin because I actually want you to feel the needs and wants on your community, which takes feeling. But I've learned how to get over it quickly. And then the most important thing is most of that's really inside politics, those egos. Think about what your average voter in your district is thinking about. That average voter does not know that that party official or that business owner or that former mayor said something bad about you. That average voter is trying to put food on the table, take the kids to soccer practice, get a raise at work. And when you show up at their door, they don't know all that inside politics. And so it takes willpower to ignore that because it's hard. But no, it's not impacting the average voter, and just get out and talk to the average voters. Let's see, we have Marilyn who said, our DEC chair in my county already ran for Florida State Rep and lost 2 times. Now she's our chair and will probably run for round 3. Our DEC board's extremely close-knit with her. I will be the opposition. What can one do? Great question, Marilyn, because some of us, as we go through this process, are going to get a lot of support from our party, and some of us will end up kind of being in opposition to our party. And so that's why you're inventorying your base, right? I am sure there are people on this webinar that have been volunteering with their party for 10 years, and the party is going to show up for them. And then there's you, Marilyn, who is different. And that just means you need to find your volunteers and donors elsewhere. But you can find them elsewhere. And then it goes back to the average voter. Does that average voter know that she ran 3 times and she's the chair and she is the party support? Or does it actually just matter that you or a volunteer shows up with a really good message with your story? And so that's why that inventorying your base and building your list is so important, to figure out where your strengths are and to highlight and maximize using your strengths. I have very much enjoyed working with all of you today. Thank you for taking time. And I'm so excited to watch you do your 90-day challenge and follow you and help you and be a partner with you in our Facebook group.
All right. Thank you, Faith. Snaps all around. We have great news. Usually it takes us at least about 24 hours to put the video up, but we were able to put the deck up rather quickly. So if you go to the Facebook group, the deck is there. So all 30 of those to-dos are online in the Facebook group. They're also they're going to be available to you via an email that we will send you. The survey is there as well. That's the Survey Monkey. That'll be in Facebook any moment as well. We really value your feedback, and we want you to tell us what you think and show Faith some love, of course, but also tell us how we can improve, what we can do better, all of that good stuff. So this is a lot. It's a lot of things. We're going to be in the alumni group. We're going to be asking you, challenging you, push you. Scroll back through that alumni group. There's a lot of great stories. We have some great wins. Actually, there was local elections on April 4th, and there's some women who ran their races. They're looking for campaign managers. They're looking for advice. And so your expertise is really needed. A couple of you in the chat have been encouraging to get over there, and I see some of you are already there. Don't forget, the last installment of Run of You Are is called Your 2-Year Campaign Plan. We're going to take a state legislative race for 2018, and we're going to work backwards through that state legislative race with Juanita Lewis. So even if you're running in, 2 or 3 years, or more looking at 2020, or any race, city council, this is going to give you that sort of piece by piece working backwards from the actual election day and how you can win. So we'll see you online. That is Wednesday evening, April 26th at 6:30 in the afternoon. And for those of you that are listening in, hop over to that Facebook group. You will see that the survey is there and the download for all 30 action items is there. Well, thank you so much, Faith. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on a Saturday. And we will see you next Wednesday night, and I'll see you in the Facebook group. We'll leave it open a little while so that folks can share their contact information and, communicate. We'll leave the chat open for a little bit. Thank you.